Her reflection in the window blinked a moment too late. I noticed it first as I fumbled with the keys to my apartment. The hallway dim and silent except for the soft hum of the refrigerator in the kitchenette across the hall. The streetlight outside cast a weak, flickering glow through the glass, making the reflection of my face appear stretched and tired. I was tired, too. Another 12-hour shift at the convenience store, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, the hum of the registers etched into my skull. My eyes were dry, my limbs heavy, and for a moment I thought the blink was just my own delayed response to fatigue. The apartment was quiet, almost too quiet. I set my bag down and leaned against the door, the cool metal biting through my thin jacket. The reflection in the glass didn't quite match my movements. I raised a hand to rub my temple, and in the pain, the mirrored me did the same, but after a pause, long enough for my stomach to tighten. A draft whispered along the sill, carrying the faint smell of wet asphalt and the city's nighttime detritus. The hum of the refrigerator seemed louder, sharper. I could hear the soft clink of a spoon against a mug I hadn't yet placed in the sink. Or maybe the sound was only in my mind. I shook my head. I was alone. I was always alone at this hour. I stepped back, suddenly conscious of the darkness in the corners of the room. The light from the street lamp flickered again, casting moving shadows across the walls. My reflection in the window, still afterimage-like, smiled faintly. Not the smile I had, but something sharper, almost knowing. I told myself I was imagining things. Tired eyes see things differently. Shadows look like shapes. A reflection lags sometimes if the glass is uneven or if you're moving too quickly. I took a deep breath, tried to focus on the familiar hums of my apartment. The refrigerator, the radiator clicking, the faint drip from the bathroom faucet. I turned away from the window, convinced I'd caught nothing unusual. But then, the sound came, a soft exhale behind me. I spun. The apartment was empty. Nothing stirred. The microwave ticked quietly. The fridge hissed. The radiator shivered under the cold. Yet when I glanced back at the window, my reflection, was standing differently than I was. I had moved toward the kitchen, but it lingered near the hallway, its head tilted slightly, staring past the glass into the room. I froze. The flicker of the streetlight caught its eyes, and they weren't my eyes. They were sharper, colder, observing, calculating. I raised my hand slowly. My reflection raised its hand, too, but just a fraction of a second later. Too late. A chill traveled up my spine. The air felt heavier, denser, as if something pressed down on my shoulders. I could hear my own heartbeat thumping in my ears. I took a cautious step back, and my reflection mimicked it after a momentary pause, perfectly out of sync with me. I tried to rationalize. Maybe it was a trick of the light, a hallucination born of exhaustion. Or maybe, more disturbingly, I was losing track of time in some imperceptible way. I sat at the edge of the couch, heart hammering, watching the reflection like a hawk. Minutes passed. The apartment remained silent except for its usual hums. I tried to focus on the familiar, my mug on the counter, the worn linoleum in the kitchen, the faint outline of the radiator against the wall. Yet the reflection did not sit. Stood still in the hallway, facing me, waiting. I noticed something else then. The reflection's movements were subtle, but deliberate. When I adjusted the blanket on the couch, it hesitated before mirroring me. When I exhaled sharply, it did not exhale immediately. Each motion was delayed, as though it existed slightly out of phase with reality. Panic settled in my chest, heavy and unrelenting. I grabbed my phone, intending to illuminate the room with its light, to confront the reflection, to prove to myself that it was just glass and fatigue. But when I turned the screen on, the reflection, my delayed self, did not appear holding the phone. It remained in the hallway, still, cold, almost patient. The room temperature seemed to drop. My breath fogged in front of my face. The hum of the refrigerator distorted, warping into a low, almost groaning sound. I backed toward the kitchen, every instinct screaming to leave, but the reflection moved, still a fraction of a second behind, blocking the path in its mirrored form. I realized then that it wasn't just mimicking me. It was learning me, testing me, anticipating, waiting for the moment I let my guard down. I closed my eyes, forcing myself to breathe steadily. When I opened them, the reflection, still delayed, was closer. Its lips curved faintly, mimicking my own anxiety, but the effect was wrong. Too calculated, too deliberate. I stumbled backward into the living room, knocking over a chair. It froze for a moment, then followed, as though it had waited for that stumble to understand me better. My hands shook violently as I tried to reach the door, the key in my pocket now a cold, impossible weight. The reflection blinked again, a second too late. That slight hesitation made my stomach drop. It was not human, not exactly. It was me, and yet it wasn't. It existed in the spaces between my movements, in the milliseconds I could not perceive, learning, waiting, breathing slightly behind me. I fled to the bathroom, slamming the door. The mirror on the wall offered no comfort. It showed only me, or so I thought. The flickering light overhead caused my reflection to shimmer unnaturally. I pressed my palm against the glass. It did the same, again delayed, a fraction too slow. My heart thumped so violently I thought it might burst. And then I saw it just behind me in the mirror. Not my reflection, not exactly. Its head tilted, its eyes sharp and intent. It mimicked my posture but lagged, always a moment behind, always watching. I turned, but the bathroom was empty. The apartment held its usual hums and creaks, indifferent. Yet when I glanced back at the window across the room, the reflection stood in the living room, exactly where I had been moments ago, observing, waiting for me to move again. I understood then that the blinking was not a mistake. It was deliberate. It was learning the rhythm of me, the timing of me, the small habits I did not even notice. One day, perhaps, it would not lag. One day, perhaps, it would act instead of imitate. The streetlight outside flickered once more, and in that dim light, I saw not my face in the window, but a shadowed smile forming just a fraction too late. And when I blinked, it didn't. The microwave beeped as if someone had pressed the buttons. I froze, mid-step, the plastic grocery bag clutched in my hand. Warm from the store but heavy with the dull weight of takeout I hadn't yet unpacked. The apartment was quiet, dimly lit by the weak glow of a street lamp spilling through the blinds. Shadows stretched across the linoleum floor, moving faintly with the flicker of the light. I had just returned from the late-night convenience store. The city outside was muffled by closed windows and walls, the usual hum of distant traffic replaced by occasional sirens and the faint rustle of wind through the alley below. My fridge hummed softly, the radiator clicked somewhere behind the living room wall, and my phone sat on the counter, screen dark. The microwave's beep came again, short, sharp, almost deliberate. My stomach tightened. I hadn't touched it. I knew I hadn't. I could see the small LED panel blinking the default, midnight. Nothing cooking inside. The sound echoed in the quiet apartment, louder than it should have been. I approached slowly. The linoleum creaked under my socks. My reflection in the microwave door looked back at me, stretched and distorted by the dark glass, eyes wide and suspicious. I reached out and pressed the door. Nothing. I opened it. Empty. Nothing inside, nothing new, nothing out of place. I laughed nervously, trying to convince myself it was a misfire, some glitch in the appliance's aging electronics. But the beep came again, this time a series of 3 rapid chirps, the kind that only happened when someone pressed the buttons. The sound felt sharp, intrusive, deliberate. I backed away, heart hammering. "Hello," I whispered. My voice sounded hollow, absorbed by the dimness. The microwave hummed faintly, its interior light flickering on without my touch, casting a yellowed glow onto the countertop. I blinked, and it went off again. I scanned the apartment. The living room was empty, the kitchen chairs pushed under the table. Nothing stirred except the subtle vibrations from the radiator, the faint draft through the blinds. I reached for my phone. The screen turned on, illuminating the small kitchen in stark white. No one. Nothing. I tried to rationalize. Electronics sometimes misbehave, especially old microwaves. Maybe a power surge or a shorted wire. Maybe fatigue was twisting reality. But then the hum changed. The low, constant vibration of the microwave deepened, as though it were breathing. A soft mechanical inhale and exhale that pulsed through the countertop and into my fingertips. I felt a cold spot in the apartment. Not a draft from the window, not the usual chill near the bathroom, but something concentrated, an unnatural cold emanating from the kitchen. I realized my own breath was fogging faintly in front of me, though the radiator was on and the apartment usually stayed warm. I stepped back, pressing my back to the wall. The microwave beeped again. This time, the panel flashed numbers, 3:33. Not the time, not the settings. Just 3:33. I had not touched it. My fingers trembled. The plastic bag slipped slightly from my hand. I watched the microwave's light flicker and stretch, shadows crawling along the walls as if drawn toward it. I turned away, thinking to leave the room, but my eyes kept returning to the appliance. The microwave door rattled slightly, as though something inside were trying to push it open. I reached out with one trembling hand, ready to unplug it, to disconnect it from the wall. My reflection in the stainless steel handle caught my attention. Pale, wide-eyed, heart hammering in sync with the beeps. The beep came again. A slow, deliberate pattern this time. Beep, beep, beep. Felt intentional, like a message. The air around me seemed heavier, pressing against my chest, my ears ringing faintly with a high-pitched hum that matched the microwave's vibration. I realized I could hear a second set of faint clicks, like tiny fingers pressing keys somewhere in the kitchen. But I was alone. I ran my hand along the counter, searching for some hidden cause, some loose button or object. There was nothing, just the microwave, blinking its ominous lights, waiting. I could hear the refrigerator hum, the radiator click, but they felt different now, secondary, distant. The microwave was the center. The microwave was alive. I backed into the corner near the living room. Shadows stretched unnaturally across the floor as the street lamp flickered outside. My eyes darted to the reflection in the microwave door. My reflection, myself, trembling, panicked, raised a hand. The microwave's door rattled again. My hand rose instinctively. The reflection blinked, a moment too late. I stumbled forward, grabbing the appliance and yanking the cord from the wall. The hum stopped immediately. The lights went dark. The apartment plunged into the muted yellow glow of the street lamp through the blinds. Silence. Absolute, oppressive silence. I sank to the floor, chest heaving, staring at the dark microwave. I told myself it was over. It had to be. Electronics misbehave. My mind was fraying. But then, a faint glow appeared in the darkened appliance. Not the panel inside. The small interior light blinked weakly, like a pulse. A soft mechanical whir began, almost imperceptible, but I could hear it now over the quiet of the apartment. And then, impossibly, the door opened slightly on its own. A thin line of darkness separated the edges, just enough to suggest something. I wanted to run, to scream, but my body refused. I watched as the microwave beeped once more. 3 sharp, deliberate beeps, then silence. I knelt closer, trembling, peering into the empty interior. There was nothing inside. Nothing. Yet the sense of being watched was overwhelming. And then I saw it. Not a face, not a figure, but a faint shimmer against the metal interior, as if the surface itself had folded inward. My reflection. Not mine. Not exactly. It blinked. Not at the same time as me. Not yet. A whisper of movement behind me made my blood run cold. I spun, but the apartment was empty. The hum of the refrigerator, the click of the radiator, the distant city noises. They all felt muted, insignificant. The microwave's light pulsed faintly, as though breathing, waiting. Couldn't look away. I could not move. The microwave's interior light flickered again. And then the buttons pressed themselves. 001. A single second. The microwave beeped. A mechanical exhale, soft, deliberate, impatient. I realized with a sinking, final certainty. The microwave was not broken. It had learned me. It had waited. and when that single second elapsed, it would act. I backed against the wall, stomach dropping, chest tight. The appliance hummed, pulsed, and the interior light flickered once more. The door rattled slightly, as if to remind me. Someone, or something, was already inside. I don't know if I can leave,